Hello and welcome. We're going to go ahead and continue our final step of our Inkscape cake project. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Inkscape and open up our project that we've been working on. So our step today is going to be to add some texture to our project. So let's see here. Open up a new document because I double clicked. I was a little impatient there. Open up 3 new documents. So let's find our actual documents. I'm going to file open and I'm going to find my cake project. Okay, so here it is. I've got some nice variations in the background with some of my gradients and I'm pretty happy with it. So there are 2 things that you can do here. The first one is going to be to add some texture to specific areas of your project. And you can decide which areas you'd like to do. For my project, as I'm looking at my cake, the top part here where all the fruit or these berries are is very textured. And on my project, it is very flat at this moment because it's vector and I didn't do anything there with my gradients. So I'm going to select that shape there. And I think this is the perfect place to apply some texture to my project. So I have that selected. And what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to filter and down to textures. And there's all of these different textures to try. And I would suggest that you play around with these. Know that you cannot apply one after the other because it's going to like attach to that image. So you want to play around with these, but then, figure out what works best. So let's see here. We're going to click on the squash and it didn't really do a whole lot to get us started there. So I'm going to go edit, undo. Okay, and I'm going to go back up into filter and back to textures and choose another one. So let's try silk carpet. All right, so it gets a little bit of waves in there, and that might work for some texture, kind of like that one. But I think there's something we can do better. So I'm going to edit, undo, or a keyboard shortcut is Control Z. Okay, Control Z is really helpful here. So I'm going to go back up to filter, down to textures, and I think the one that I'm looking at my notes here that I liked, actually I liked cracked glass. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with cracked glass for right now. Does that look, it gives me some texture, right? Maybe not quite exactly what I was hoping for. So after you get something that you think might work, you're then going to go up to filter and down to filter editor. And this is where we're going to really get a chance to play around with those settings. Now, when you open this up, there's a lot going on here and it could become a little bit overwhelming. So what I'm going to first do is there's a whole list of things here. I'm going to click on one of them and it opens this up to, again, see the whole list, which I think is a whole lot easier to view and kind of understand. The 3 areas that we're going to adjust are going to be, we're going to start with the Gaussian blur. And you can come down here to the bottom and you want to be in this effects parameters and you can adjust this up and down. And really it didn't do a whole lot because we're not seeing that. But if it's not filling in, like here I've got edges and things, you can always adjust that up. Okay, so that's one thing you can play around with. Another area in here that is helpful to play around with is this idea of turbulence. And down here at the bottom, I'm really just looking at this base frequency area, and I'm going to adjust up, making it more detailed there, or down. I think I need something like that to really mimic more of my texture in my cake. The other thing in here is these octaves. You can adjust those. I'm not seeing much of a change there, so I'm going to leave it alone. But that is something that is safe enough to adjust. The last one here is seed. You can do that. Mine's going to change. It's going to kind of just change the positioning as far as I can see, but play around with that until you're happy. I kind of like it there. So I'm going to leave that there. The last one here is the displacement map. And I can adjust the scale of this up or down. Doesn't seem when I release to be doing a whole lot for this particular one. It may affect different uh, filters differently. Okay, so just know that as you're going in. You can experiment with other things in here. but just know that if you do make a mistake, that Control Z is your friend. So I'm going to stick with that. I think that's pretty cool looking. And I'm going to go ahead and close my filter palette over here. Now, the next thing that is possible, so I added that there. You could continue to do this, like selecting another shape, going up to filter, going to texture, picking a filter. That one obviously does not work very well for this. So edit, undo, and just play around with these things. The goal here is not to make it look distorted and crazy. The goal is to enhance the project. So if you're not seeing anything in filters that's helping you really make your project look more like your Wayne Thiebaud example, then maybe you need to go a different route. So I'm going to File, Save right now because I like what I have so far. The other thing that you can do is vector art is specifically creating lines and shapes and putting them together, and really is based on solids. And so when we think of more painterly ideas like Thiebaud's paintings, that is more of a pixel-based kind of application. So again, this is completely optional, but if you are looking for more for your project, what we can do in Inkscape still is we're going to go over here to File and export this file. It's going to bring our export palette over here to the right. And I'm going to first check down here at the bottom, and I'm going to change this from a PNG to a, because typically we're in Inkscape SVG, to like a JPEG. That's your typical raster-based image file type. Not the best quality file type, but it is a raster-based image. So we're going to go with a JPEG, and I'm going to hit export. It's going to say a file name. This is going to be the file name already exists because I've done this before. I'm going to hit replace. Okay, so it exported and it put it in my downloads folder on my computer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up here to File, Open, and I'm going to open that raster style image. So Inkscape Cake, there it is, and I'm going to open. So now that with this dialog box that pops up, we want to embed the image, don't link it, and everything else is fine. So I'm going to click OK. So the default settings there should be pretty good for our purposes. All right, looking at my project here, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. It got rid of everything. When I save this as a different file type, it only saves the canvas area, your page. It doesn't save the workspace around it. So I don't have my trees and all my reference images, which is fine. I don't need them anymore. So I have my actual artwork to look at. Okay, so there it is. And what we're going to do with this is, again, this is going into the more of the idea of raster style images. So I'm going to select the image here by clicking on it. And then I'm going to go up here to the extensions and go down to raster. And over here in raster, there is this oil paint option. So I'm going to click on oil paint. Now this is going to put an overall effect on the entire painting. Okay, so just keep that in mind because now it is all one piece as a JPEG file. So I'm going to hit live preview on this, and you can see how it kind of changes it into this idea of an oil painting. It's at 6, so we can adjust the radius here to go and like more crisp or closer 0 to our original, or we can take this up and give it a second to react and really abstract our cake the higher the number becomes. So we don't want an abstract cake. We still want this to look like a Thiebaud painting. So I'm going to go somewhere in the 2 to 3. That's 1. I think 2. I'm happy with 2. Kind of gives it that little bit of painterly feel that we saw in Thiebaud's work. And I'm going to hit apply. Be sure that when you do that, you are satisfied with what you see, because once you apply this, there is no selecting it and taking it off. It is like attached to the image. The only way to undo would be that Control Z or Edit Undo to remove that. All right, well, that is all I have for you today. Please, let's just export it. It's the same process, but we get to tell it to save it as that JPEG file. So export, everything looks good. We'll hit export at the bottom. Do I want to export it and replace the existing file? I'll hit yes. And so now that file has been exported and saved as a JPEG with this oil-based extension on it. Okay, so I have it saved. I'm going to go ahead and if I am done and I'm happy with everything, go ahead and take my screenshot for the day and submit that properly so that I have it. Pop up down here. I'm going to save it. This is save. And this is lesson 10.0, no, 10.10. Screenshot. And I'll hit save. And now I have that to submit properly. So if you do have any questions or concerns about this step in the project, please reach out and let me know. Otherwise, have a good rest of the time and enjoy the process.